Hello, adventurer. It's good to see you. You have made it to the morning grind.
Welcome, welcome.
It's the live stream at the beginning of the Geekverse, where we talk about all types of topics in geekdom, gaming, and fantasy, with an emphasis on being constructive and creating the things that we want to exist in the world.
It's all on the grind, Sizemore. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
That's exactly right. There are a lot of adventures to be had today. Dungeons to explore and monsters to slay, and who knows what a random encounter might send our way. That's why we have to prepare, so settle in now for the morning grind with your favorite beverage in hand.
Tea? Or maybe something a little stronger. I've got a few bottles of the old Wynyard left.
Whatever you want. Pull up a chair.
Dude.
If you're feeling fancy, how about a cappuccino? Or a frappuccino? Or how about an espresso?
Just tea, thank you.
Sounds good to me, Gandalf. Whatever you want. I'm just glad you're here.
Everyone is welcome. You can just watch if you want. You don't have to worship anything you don't want to worship.
Thank you, Mike. But be forewarned.
Sometimes we get really strange characters around here.
Wait, what's that you say? Why can't you come and be a part of the stream?
My wife would disown me.
Oh no, I bet she'll be fine with it. Come on in.
Am I scared for my safety? No.
What are we supposed to do?
Everybody do the secret handshake.
Secret cultist handshake.
Oh, now do wizards who love each other.
This, my friend, is a science.
I still don't have gifts, but it's fine.
It's all on the grind, son. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
Dude, this would be a sick place to bring the band.
Indeed it would be, Dave. It really would. I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Oh, look, here's someone new.
Is this the cultist meetup?
Yes it is.
Come to hang out? Please accept me. I have nothing else.
Okay, we accept you. Everyone's welcome here.
Brought some snacks.
Well, that makes things even better.
You want some coffee? I don't drink coffee. You sure? It's cultist coffee. What makes it cultist coffee? I'm a cultist and I'm drinking it. Oh. Then I'll have some.
What exactly is going on here?
I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. It's so great to have you. Oh, and look, here comes another stranger.
Can we help you?
Yes, fellow cultists. I could really use some food.
Oh yeah? Welcome. We have donuts.
Oh, it's me. I'm glad I'm here. I'm sure you have a few questions for me, though.
What's your name? Who do you work for? What god do you worship?
Great questions, Rob.
I'm Steve King, and I worship Nyarlathotep.
No, not really. I'm just Heath, and I won't be worshiping anything this morning. But I will be your host. Welcome to the office. We're going to have a great time. I've got my coffee ready, because now it's time for the morning grind.
If you could become a fish, that would be amazing. Then I could command you with my mental fish powers.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the morning grind and welcome to the office. How are you doing? I hope everyone is doing great. Tomocrat says, just woke up. I haven't been up for all of that long either. I was up and then I went back to bed, but I'm here now. Lynn, good morning, Lynn. And Robert. Oh, good to see you, Robert. Good to see you. Hello, Zero the Blade. Good to see everyone. Let's see what's been going on here. I have been trying to work on getting an Indiegogo for the Good Night Sword going, and I've been trying to. I've got to send out. Been trying to write a contract about that, and so I've been trying to write that up, and I'm still not done with it. So that's important to get done. I was also working on our digital tavern yesterday, some this afternoon, and I found some additional layouts that I think are going to be better. Hello, Mike. And I want to experiment with that. I also want to experiment with, I've got 3 different potential platforms that could potentially be used with it for running RPGs. Micah was recommending yesterday this, hey, Sable Phoenix, Micah was recommending this one called, you may have seen in the chat, Another Multiverse. Although in the chat on Discord, Micah was saying that it seems to be difficult to kind of get started with, which that is always a part of. If you want to see the link to it, I'll put it here in the put a link to the Ravenkeep Discord server in the chat. But that it seemed like that. It seemed pretty cool when I was looking at the home page for it. It seems like it had some pretty neat stuff. But the amount of time it takes to get things going and prepped for things seems to be difficult. We really need, like, if you're going to spend a lot of time prepping something for an online digital environment, you really need to be able to use that thing over and over and over again. And the problem is, how often does any single one person use the exact same setup for a role-playing game? And that answer is probably not all that often. I suppose it gets used more in West Marches style games, but if you're just using a traditional style game, then it probably doesn't. So does it make sense to spend all this time trying to set this up digitally? Or the other option then would be that, okay, we can use this across different groups. I don't know why, and maybe something like this is out there, but everybody seems to talk about setting their stuff up their own stuff up. But like, if you were to set up with all the bells and whistles for a game, some tavern, isn't there some way to sell like that tavern that's completely set up so that nobody else has to do that again? It's like you set up a tavern, like, here is this particular tavern in Forgotten Realms, or some particular dungeon or something like that. It's all set up now. Now, there should be some kind of marketplace on the tabletop software where somebody can say, hey, do you want to use this? Just pay, $2, $3, whatever it is. And then it imports all the way set up, completely set up into your system. Does somebody else have something like that? But nonetheless, that's what I would do if I were trying to set up these really complex environments on a virtual tabletop. But I'm not exactly sure if they're needed. But I want to look at that. I want to look at the multiverse. I want to look at Alchemy RPG as well. We briefly looked at Alchemy RPG while it was on Kickstarter. Has anybody been following that? It seems like from its external pages that it's one of the most interesting ones that I've seen as far as what I would want out of a virtual tabletop. I've been watching some of their development vlogs on YouTube. And of course, I did back it on Kickstarter, but I don't think I haven't gotten any update. I don't believe that lets me in yet, but I still want to try that out. And then also, I was looking at, there's some kind of online system for playing cards, but that it also said that it had things like dice. I'm wondering if it has a marker board. If it has a marker board, then that's it. That would be it. But it said you could roll dice, you could move around like chips, like checkers and things like that. You also had cards, and you could upload custom cards to it and roll dice. And I'm like, oh, well, I need to check that out. So there are a couple of different, I guess that's three different things to investigate to see if they can integrate with this virtual tavern kind of thing. And I did come up with a bigger one. A better layout. I noticed there's some new layouts they put into the software. One of them is a tavern, and it will arguably be better because it's got more open space so that people can walk around a lot easier. Sable Phoenix says the tavern test was cool yesterday. I think you've got something there. I think there is something there. We just got to figure out the best way to use it. I think so. I'm glad everybody liked it. I'm glad that it seems so well received. I think I'm glad that we did the test though, to figure out, okay, the number of people who showed up. Okay, we need a bigger space for the tavern, and how do we get that? And I think there are things we can do with it. I'm still working on it. Tomocrat says the reason why I've looked into simple systems is simply because I hate all the prep work, and VTT is the worst. I agree. We can run great games with just a marker board and some markers and dice. The VTT, trying to get all of this stuff into a VTT, unless it's going to be used by a lot of people, like I said, setting up some type of tavern or adventure and then being like, all right, there you go. Now everybody who wants to run this, it would have to be like a marketplace kind of thing, because it's so much work to set up those. complete environments in the virtual tabletop, like Tomocrat is saying. And it might be worth it. I mean, it might be worth it, if you're trying to do an online game and you need and you want to have all the bells and whistles to pay a certain amount to just have it there. Like here's your taverns to choose from. Here's the dungeons to choose from. It's all set up. Good morning, James. Lynn says, I favor simple systems to do the basics. Me too. See, Robert says, Children of the Grave GPT can do it on the fly with the caveat that locations and NPCs are unique to the user session. So Children of the Grave, that's what Robert was working on. And I went through a couple of different tests, which is like a text-based adventure system that he's got online and loaded. And we took a look at in one of the members-only streams. And then I was playing around with it. Even was looking at it again yesterday. So he actually Robert got much further using ChatGPT and a large language model to run a text-based RPG than I ever got. Let's see. Did somebody give me another one to look at? Oh no, friend uses Forge. Had that as fun, but still a lot of setup. It was pretty cool. I'll do it again. My plan, I think, is to do some kind of like open house or something like that. Once I have the larger, I do kind of have the larger tavern that set up. But I need to do some other things with it. But then we'll do an open house like one evening. Let everybody come and see what we can do. I need to come up with a good way to actually play an RPG so at least people can see that. The first open house would be, again, like a tech test, people seeing how to use it, how to walk around. All right. So since I don't have anything else on that side, later we should probably look at alchemy. I want to look at alchemy again, but I'll have to see if I can log in, and I want to look at that multiverse. The multiverse thing looked cool. But a lot of setup. We need easy. I like easy because easy allows us to play. If it takes so much to set up, then it doesn't get done. Let's go over here. Let me bring up Hour of Ships in the Sea. The Forge does look really cool, but it seems to have a lot of fiddly bits with it. Let me look this up. The Forge RPG. Well, I need to look at this one too. Okay, there's something out there. Okay. The Forge is a no-hassle RPG gaming platform, a hosting service, and so much more, powered by by Foundry Virtual Tabletop. Okay, so this is powered by Foundry. I want to know if we can integrate Foundry, because I know people love Foundry. If people love it, it would be great to be able to integrate it. If people have stuff set up and that they want how they want to run it and all of that, then it would be great to be able to integrate it. But if you're just getting started, easier is faster. So this does say fight goblins, not servers. So powered by Foundry Virtual Tabletop and our unique integration technologies. Play for free with your friends in an existing Forge campaign, free forever. No ads, no traps, except those laid by the goblins. Game masters, get started quickly and focus on being a great game master. Okay, so free trial there. So the game masters, I suppose, have to pay. Well, let me check out this one too. So let me just sheet of paper here. So I'm thinking we need to look at how we can integrate some type of good system with the tavern. So this is another multiverse. Alchemy RPG. I liked the direction that it seemed like alchemy was going, because it seemed to be based on invoking a feel. You know how I like that, rather than trying to deal with, hey, we got to make sure that everybody is like moving exactly square by square by square by square, and making sure that we're, on the fly calculating line of sight and all of uh, the light radiuses and all of that, and making sure that every thing on the table is representing the correct, or represented by the correct 3D model and all of that. We'll see. So then that's playing. Was it playing cards? It may have been called playingcards.io. That may not exactly be right, but it was something like that. And then this is the Forge. And also, just in general, how does, I guess, Foundry integrate? And I don't think that Virtual Tabletop is going to be able to do that. But, okay, I guess there's actually a lot more to look at in this regard. But Tabletopia might. And I tried to set up, people are telling me it's easier now, but when I tried to set up like virtual board games, they took a lot of effort. But if somebody does them once and then it's set up there and then you can use it, then it's probably worthwhile. But like if something like I'll have to look at Tabletopia again, because if Tabletopia, if you could put in some basic stuff, I wonder if you can use can you put together a marker board in Tabletopia? I'm not sure. Because you need to be able to sketch out your zones. We'll see. Oh, Foundry is what I meant. So, but there is something called the Forge too. Somebody was talking about the Forge. Tomocrat says friend uses Forge. So one is based on the other. Foundry is great if you know coding or at least scripting, apparently. The people who use Foundry and get it singing are the ones who treat it as much as a hobby as the actual games that they are running it. I can believe that too. So if somebody had it singing, as you say, then it would be nice to be able to play with it and bring it up in the tavern. Good morning, Vision. Yes, please do hit the like button and show some love. For tabletop games, Tabletop Simulator is a very popular one. Yes. The reason I was asking yesterday, can Tabletop Simulator run in a browser window? Or does it always have to be through Steam or something like that? I'm afraid that the integration with the tavern is going to be more difficult if you've got to have it integrate with some other app. I think that if you're just bringing up a web browser, that's going to be easier. I could still be wrong about that. But Tabletopia is browser-based. Although it does seem like Tabletop Simulator has won out in general. But if Tabletopia can do what we need it to. So, all right, so we got some to check out. We may have to check out some of these on the grind and see how they integrate. But all right, so we were taking a look at this very deadly very deadly of Ships in the Sea. This is an AD&D book. I remember it being one that got a lot of use when it came out, and especially because we were playing this. I think it came out around the same time as the Shahagwan Adventure. So there seemed to be this time where ocean-going campaigns, it seemed we were doing a lot of them. And so we were playing Bruce R. Cordell's Shahagwan Adventures and had of Ships in the Sea. And so it all kind of got a lot of use. But we were just talking about last time. So this was two days ago when we were taking a look at Ships in the Sea. And we were saying that it's very brutal as far as your ship sinking. Sable Phoenix says, support voice chat in program. It's not a browser-based program. It has to be installed by a Steam. Yeah, that's what I thought. Lynn says, so that may make it difficult for tavern integration. Lynn says, I was a professional software engineer for a decade, so I can code, but it depends on how good the scripting language is as to whether or not I want to bother with it. And Sable Phoenix says, as far as I know, Foundry VTT uses JavaScript. All right, let's take a look at nautical combat, because I guess that's the next thing here. So this chapter offers Dungeon Masters two different combat systems. The first system deals with shipboard fighting, which directly involves the player characters. The second, very brief system, allows for quick resolution of battles involving fleets of ships. So first system, shipboard fighting. with the player characters, the other one fleets of ships. Okay, time in nautical combat. A detailed combat system uses combat rounds. Unlike traditional AD&D combat rounds, however, a naval combat round can be 1 minute, 10 minutes, or 30 minutes or longer, depending on how far apart the combatants are when the round begins. Also sounds like spaceship combat in GURPS. This variable timescale can take some getting used to, but it allows for quick resolution of very lengthy actions such as pursuit. The range between combatants also determines which actions are possible during any particular round, as shown on the table below. So at a distance of 1 to 250 yards, we're operating at a time scale of 1 minute. Flee, evade, close, ram, board, spell, missile, and artillery. 251 to 1,000 yards, 10 minutes. Flee, close, spell, and artillery. And greater than 1,000 yards, we're talking about 30 minutes worth of time. Flee, close, and spell. So a ship cannot ram or board its opponent unless it first reduces the distance to the target ship to 0. Providing the distance between the opposing ships when the round begins is not greater than the range of the attacker's artillery, spell, or archery. So in this system, each round of naval combat occurs in 3 distinct phases: a maneuvering phase, the action phase, and the resolution phase. During the maneuvering phase, each ship declares its action and attempts to gain a tactical advantage, in effect outmaneuvering the opposing ship or ships. During the action phase, the ships perform their declared actions, including movement and combat. Combat includes the exchange of firepower, spells, and missile weapons, boarding actions, and ramming. The resolution phase occurs when all ships complete their actions for the combat round. In this phase, each ship calculates its damage and suffers the appropriate penalties. Any required seaworthiness or morale check must occur at the end of this phase. And those seaworthiness checks, as we found out, can be pretty brutal. We'll see how they are here. Combat resumes once again with the maneuvering phase and continues with the other 2 phases until a victor emerges or both ships agree to stand down. Dungeon mastery tips: running detailed naval combat. The detailed combat system remains fairly abstract, and the DM doesn't need to know the relative position of every ship involved in the battle. However, it's important for the dungeon master to determine the distance between combatants. The dungeon master must also remain aware of how much time passes during each naval combat round. A ship moves much further during a round lasting 30 minutes than it does during a round lasting 10 minutes. Likewise, a spell's duration runs out fairly quickly if combat proceeds in 30-minute or 10-minute rounds. The actions of player characters can profoundly influence the course of a naval combat round. A character might perform several actions during a single naval combat round. For example, the ship carrying the party tries to flee from a pirate vessel 5,000 yards away. The maneuvers between the 2 ships take 30-minute rounds. A PC wizard, however, might choose to fly over to the pursuing ship and loose a few spells. That leaves the PC with 30 normal AD&D game melee rounds to resolve, while the 2 ships resolve a single 30-minute naval combat round. Most likely, the PCs will end the encounter before the naval combat round is complete. When the naval combat round lasts 10 minutes or 30 minutes, the DM should resolve all PC actions before dealing with naval combat actions. When a naval combat round lasts for only 1 minute, PC actions take place during the action phase of the naval combat round. Okay. Good morning, Andrew. Sable Phoenix says, this couldn't be used with realm management then. You don't even have to know their positions exactly. Right, I know. This is letting us down here. You don't have to know the ship's positions? Okay, so let's see. Here's a list of the steps necessary for each round of detailed naval combat. Determine the distance between opposing ships at the round start. During the first round of combat, this usually will be between the spotted range for the prevailing light. Oh yeah, we did have spotted range, like all these different ranges for all these different ships. During the subsequent rounds, the range between ships will depend on what happened during the previous maneuvering phase. Determine the length of the naval combat round and which actions are possible. The distance between the ships determines both of these things. See Table 11. Have the person controlling each ship declare an action for the coming round. Okay, so we're determining distance first, the spotted range. During subsequent rounds, the range between ships will depend on what happens during the previous maneuver phase. Okay, determine the length of the combat round. Have the person controlling each ship declare an action for the coming round. Do not keep the declaration secret and allow players 1 or 2 chances to change their actions in response to their foe's actions. I guess that's because the time is so long. If the 2 players cannot decide, have each roll his ship's maneuverability dice. The loser must declare an action first and stick to it. The list of possible actions change according to the range between the ships, as noted on Table 11. Missile and artillery fire need not be declared. Ships can perform these actions whenever the target comes within range. It's important to remember that these actions describe what a ship can do only in general terms. See the notes on Table 13 for details. Len says, does anybody have any idea how popular this naval combat system actually was back in the day? I don't. I only have my own experience. And of course, who knows? When was this actually published? Let's look at the publication date on this. I'm on page 34. This was published in... No date there. Oh, right here. This was 1997. So this book came out in 1997. I just remember it being popular in my circles. And that's this whole book. I don't remember everything we used out of it. We probably used some naval combat out of it. But I remember it more being, more about underwater combat and things like that. Because those Hagwin adventures, like I do remember you got shipwrecked. No surprise, huh? But I don't remember I don't know how it was in other people's groups. Conduct the maneuvering phase, conduct action phase. Conduct the maneuvering phase of the combat round. The result will determine if the range between the opposing ships changes, and if so, by how much. Conduct the action phase of the combat round. Remove all types of combat and players' actions during this phase. If the opposing ships suffer damage, record it now. Conduct the resolution phase of the combat round. Use this phase to determine any special effects from the damage, crew morale checks, firefighting, and the like. Repeat the process for the next round unless one ship has escaped or surrendered. Okay, so then we go into detail about what all of these things are. Okay, personnel assignments. So there was one person controlling the ship, but we talked about that. I talked about that briefly when we were talking about GURPS combat, that it was supposed to be GURPS space combat, supposed to be task-based, which sounds pretty good. But I kind of got bored with GURPS space combat, so we didn't go into it. But you need something for all of the PCs to do. So in addition to their normal complement of crewmen, rowers and sailors, and Marines, boarders, unassigned crewmen, artillerists, and firefighters, most ships also carry a number of unassigned or inactive personnel. These are especially true of ships with large complements of archers. Since only a limited number of archers can fire at one time, the remaining archers must be assigned elsewhere. DM and players should keep track of all personnel aboard their ships. Please keep track of all personnel aboard your ships. Use the ship record at the end of this book for this task. Oh, I thought this was going to talk about PCs and assigning their tasks, but it's not. Crew experience table. Determining crew experience for NPC ships is an inexact process. Generally, the DM examines the various crew categories. So we're not averaging out all of the levels of everybody on the ship. So we're not supposed to have a character sheet for everybody on the ship here. Generally, the DM examines the various crew categories detailed below and decides whether or not the crew of a particular ship falls into that category. It's the average of the crew as a whole. So I guess this is modifiers to maneuverability or other seaworthy checks, I suppose. Now, modifier applied to each side's maneuverability and pursuit die roll. Tells you how much it costs to hire a crew like that. So scurvy rats. These are crewmen with some sailing experience, perhaps a couple of short voyages, and some desire to perform well. Cutthroats and other rogues often appear among sailors with this degree of experience. Scurvy rats hire themselves out for 3 GP per month. A crew of slave rowers might rise this category if well-trained, cared for, and highly motivated. So the landlubbers are generally your crew of slave rowers. So Tomocrat says its date was near the end of TSR line, so it was all round. So it was round the throw at the wall time before third. Lynn says, hey, what's a good seafaring adventure without a good shipwreck or two? Yeah, you might as well be expecting it. Mates, mariners, old salts. Wow, okay. Maneuverability and combat. Oh, so A wants to flee. So action declares. So this is like, I guess it's just ship A and B. This section, so the acting ship's adjusted maneuver or pursuit roll is at least twice the high as its opponent's roll. So acting ship is A, and then the other ship is B, and we're comparing their maneuverability. So if A wants to close with B, and A's maneuverability is greater than or equal to twice B, at close range, because that's A, the ship. A closes the range. A gains +1 bonus on its next maneuverability and pursuit roll and gains a +3 bonus to missile and artillery combat rolls this round. Well, that's big, but that is double if you're double. So if A is greater than B, A closes the range. A gains a +1 bonus to its next maneuverability and pursuit roll and gains a +2 bonus to missile and artillery combat this round. If they're equal, no modifier. Range changes in favor of the faster vessel by 1dx times 10 yards. So maneuverability isn't necessarily your speed. I mean, so those are two different things. I haven't seen a chart like this. I don't remember this chart. But here are all of our actions. Do you want to flee, close, ram, evade, or board? Fleeing, closing, ramming. Evading, boarding, missile fire, artillery fire. Why would you even pay slave rowers? Isn't that the kind of point of making them slaves, isn't it? I have no memory of this place. I feel like that's more of the cost of maintaining them. Could be. Always choose the ramming maneuver. It says this is a deadly maneuver. An attacking ship collides with its target vessel. Most ships engage in ramming actions possess a ram of some sort, though desperate captains of ships without rams may send their vessel on a collision course with the enemy. Ships successfully ram only during the action phase in which they can close the range between the target ship and themselves to 0. If they cannot accomplish this, the ramming attempt fails. In addition, archers cannot fire missiles in the same action phase as their ship is ramming. Action phase as the ship is ramming. Oh. As the nautical bowmen are either preparing themselves for collision or grabbing swords for boarding combat. I'm sure there are rules for that here in a bit. Artillery fire. Range changes. Well, here is an example maneuver phase, and it is pretty extensive. I don't know if I want to go through that. That's the first maneuver phase. Then we go to the action phase. During the action phase, this is when actions are resolved in the following order: missile and artillery attacks, ramming attempts, and boarding melees. Ramming is exciting. Andrew says, thumbs up. I have to say how impressed I am with your grind. You're at this thing usually twice a day for quite some time now. Well done. Yeah, we're closing in. I was thinking about that. This is morning grind 237. Okay, so we're at probably 2/3 of a year. And I haven't been doing as many of the evening ones. And I still, like, for instance, I did get a message from Rachel. And if you've been around long enough, you know Rachel because she plays Shay in the Cultists. And then also when we were doing the General Geekdom show, that was last summer. Actually, it was about this time last summer. If you've been here since last summer and you look up the General Geekdom shows, we did have a panel show, and I'm not exactly sure how, but that was difficult to coordinate. But she was part of the panel that was on there where we talked about different topics in geekdom, and she did send me a message I noticed last night. I haven't replied yet. Something about wanting to know if we were ever going to do more of the General Geekdom kinds of shows. I never got my living room set up to do the dinner and a board game, and I want to play more of my Hero Quest with my elf because that was really great. But my I still have all my paints sitting over here on my desk, so we'll have to see. But with the new idea with the virtual tavern, I think that some of those things might happen in the evening rather than just watching me play. It would be great if we actually had some way to meet and actually play games together. Helsente's Ghost said, using this book would definitely be an exercise in chart reference speed. Well, there's a lot worse. There's a lot worse. Helsente's Ghost said, my way would be to print out the different chapters into separate books and have a master chart booklet. Too many rules to remember. Stargate Mind says, this channel has been great for design and reducing word count in RPGs. Hopefully, maybe next week we can get back to some RPG design. Oh, here's a chart for you. General Naval Combat. Roll D20 adjusted hit number. What is this? When do we use that? Hits from excess attack factor. Extra factors results from table 15. When does it say use this? Naval combat works. Naval missile combat, naval missile attacks work just like normal missile attacks, except the missiles are fired in groups. Each archer contributes one missile factor to the attack. Artillery weapons each contribute the number of factors shown on table 21 artillery. Contributes range, damage, crew, rate of fire, Thaco, space. I didn't see factors. The player controlling the attacking ship selects a target vessel and rolls 1d20 for every 10 missile factors. The attacker's Thaco and target's armor class determines the basic number needed to score a hit, though that value is subject to modifications for range and maneuvers during the maneuverability phase. If the attackers have different Thacos, use the most prevalent Thaco in the group. If the targets have different armor classes, use the most prevalent armor class in the group. Once the DM knows the required attack number, check table 15, General Naval Combat. Cross-reference the number required for a hit with each die roll. The result indicates the number of hits inflicted on the opposing ship. Here is the D20 roll. Here is adjusted to hit number. And this is the number of hits inflicted. So we're trying to aggregate a whole bunch of archers. Yeah, Thaco again here. These designers never met a matrix that they didn't like. You have a large plate of... I do. And I have not been productive over the past couple of months. There used to be people working down here with me, but we didn't generate revenue fast enough to keep that going. We were doing a lot of stuff when there were people down here working, but we didn't generate revenue fast enough. So it's just me now. If I could figure out a way to generate revenue again, that would be great to be able to get people back and working and do more stuff and do more shows and things like that. But it's on me to figure out how to generate more revenue faster. Is there a way to have naval combat, aerial combat, and spelljammers all in one sub-mechanic, or am I dreaming? Well, It sounds like you should be able to do that. Like, I suppose if you were designing everything from scratch today, it seems like there would be a lot of similarities. I guess that's action resolution mechanic, core action resolution mechanic across different types of vehicles. Like GURPS is probably would do something like that. Well, GURPS does have the spaceships combat specifically, but that's in a separate book. Probably if you're in the general rules, you can you could generalize, because I think I would want to generalize that. I remember referencing rules was just sort of normal back in the second E days, but back then there was a lot more DM fiat, I think. I think he just means generalizing across, like, we got one type of, some type of vehicle or something like that, whether that is a ship, whether that's an airship, or whether it's a spaceship or something like that. That way you don't have to remember different kinds of rules for each one. 5 are for custom rules projects, designing aspects for campaigns, pro DMing, and art, and then also membership fees. Are you talking about how to generate cash? 5 are for custom rule projects, generating aspects of campaigns, pro DMing, and art. Lynn says, this system seems pretty typical of an ad hoc supplement. I prefer systems that are designed along with the core rules so that everything fits, but they don't always anticipate everything. Well, yeah, that's... I'm going to kind of skip through this a bit. I think you're right. I mean, that's how, GURPS was designed. GURPS 4th edition was the one that was designed from the ground up, I guess, most trying to make sure that everything is integrated. But I suppose historically, most supplements are designed more like this. You end up with some kind of core rule book, and then you realize, oh, we really should cover ships and sailing in the ocean. And then you get a specific system dedicated to it, a specific rule book dedicated to it. But then the problem is, well, how do they integrate? They probably don't integrate very well, and they might not even work very well together. And that's why when playtesting, you notice that when playtesting goes on, it will say, you only did you playtest this? This happened. I remember this coming up in 3rd edition. Was all of this playtested with all of the other books that are out there being thought about? And the answer is no, it can't be. Because who in the world could consider, even when you're writing it or when you're playtesting it, hey, playtest this with absolutely everything else that's out there. So it always gets playtested by itself, and written in the context of just itself and the main PHB rulebook, right? And so you don't really know how it's going to interact with something else. And sometimes it can interact in weird ways with something else. So artillery, I didn't see factor. Like, where am I supposed to include the factor of the artillery in here? I've got crew. I've got crew here and rate of fire. Maybe rate of fire is what I'm supposed to, maybe, let's see, rate of fire. This indicates how often the weapon can fire. The first number indicates the weapon's rate of fire in a 1-minute round, next in 10-minute round. The weapon can fire its full rate only if fully crewed. And maybe rate of fire is what we're supposed to use for its factor. Artillery hits. I'm kind of interested to know about individuals going under the ocean. An example of missile fire. So again, that's an extensive example of missile fire. Oh, and it's still going. Here's our ramming rules. In naval combat, ramming often precedes boarding actions as the maneuver brings the opposing ships into physical combat and contact. Since the ships inflict more than a glancing strike during ships that inflict more than a glancing strike during a ramming maneuver receive +2 on their boarding rolls if they chose to board in the next action phase. Likewise, ships that inflict only glancing strikes or a miss or suffer damage themselves become subject to boarding by the target vessel, which receives no bonus to its roll. Helsinti's Ghost says you could use the movement rates for each different vehicle, but different mechanics would suit different vehicles. I think it all works together in 2E, but not only one sub mechanic. Well, no, that's true. You've got the complexity problem. You're absolutely right. Even 4E GURPS doesn't solve its complexity problem. Everything is there, but you have to find it. Yes. GURPS is complex. There's a lot to it. So I suppose something like if you're looking for what's the system that's got the most, that does the most with its core rule book? Okay, of course GURPS, but you've got the trade-off of complexity. I suppose Fate does. Savage Worlds, is Savage Worlds on that list? Sometimes a design that focuses on doing one type of setting is the way to go. I like general systems, but I also like it when you've got a system that is specifically set up to invoke a certain feel of a particular type of world. Ramming critical hit results. An example of ramming. Again, pretty extensive. Boarding. Being grappled. And there's going to be another different kind of combat system right here for entire fleets of ships, right? Crew morale. It says, although the morale rules are fairly comprehensive, DMs should not adhere to them if they interfere with the storyline or pace of the adventure. Dungeon masters should use common sense in applying these rules. A fanatical group of cultists pursuing the PCs over water will probably not surrender just because their leader dies. Likewise, a ship full of mercenaries hired to capture the PCs will probably not heroically fight the party until the bitter end. They should value their lives more than a few bags of gold. Surrendering, escaping, multiple ships. It says the detailed combat system works best for resolving duels between two ships, with the players controlling the vessels that carry the PCs and the DM handling the opposing ship. If 3 or more ships become involved in battle, the DM has several options. 2 or more vessels can act together as a unit. Both vessels take the same action on the same turn and effectively function as a single ship, although they cannot pool crewmen or damage points. If the ships have different pursuit or maneuverability ratings, the group must use the lowest one. All the vessels on each side act as units, subject to the limitations noted above. The battle can be broken apart into separate ship duels. Allow the ships to act independently, or use a combination of methods. Monsters in naval combat. Yeah, because in fantasy, you also have to make sure you're taking account of large monsters. Large artillery versus creatures. Creature ramming effects. Player characters in detailed combat. So ship combat was a major part of this. Oh, wait, didn't somebody bring up freezing sphere here? So what is this? Spells in combat? Wizard spells? Spell casting? How the PCs influence things? The Autoluke's freezing sphere. This cold globe version allows 2 rolls on table 18. Each crew section struck suffers 6 hits. Ice created by the freezing globe version of the spell can create an ice flow in front of an opposing ship. The target's ship must immediately attempt a ramming attack at -2 penalty, possibly suffering damage from the impact, which breaks up the ice. Regardless of the ramming action's result, the ship cannot attempt any other ramming attacks during the following round, as it must back away from the ice. I think people are talking about using that underwater. And this is like how all of the priest spells and wizard spells interact with ship combat. Oh, here's fleet battles. So when whole fleets clash, the fates of nations might be at stake. Because such battles represent major events in the campaign, it's often best if the DM simply decides the outcome. To determine the result randomly, pair off the opposing ships and roll their maneuverability dice. If there's an odd number of ships, pit 2 or more ships from the larger force against ships of the smaller force. Modify the dice rolls as follows. That's kind of strange. Because the battles represent major events in the campaign, it's often best if the DM simply decides the outcome. So that's a lot of DM fiat right there. But it's not exactly determining it randomly. If you want to determine the results, I mean, there's a random element in here. But if you want to game out, if you want to game out the battle, that would probably be a better phraseology here or something like that. Because if you have all the trouble getting it together an entire fleet, well, you want something that is not, you probably want something, especially if you're the PCs and one of the fleets is yours, you probably want to do something that's not just the DM deciding the outcome. And you also don't want to decide randomly. You want to game it out. Wait. Oh, wait. So there's actually not a whole lot of information on that? Oh, there's actually not a whole lot of information on fleet battles. I was expecting more. Look, it says, so that's kind of, that kind of glosses over it. It says DMs craving a less arbitrary method for resolving naval battles should pick up a copy of TSR's Naval Battle Rules, the Seas of Cerealia. Although this product is intended for use with the Birthright campaign setting, the combat system can be used for any medieval campaign. I have never heard of that. It's probably because I don't know a whole lot about Birthright. Okay, so here it is, a Birthright, Naval Battle Rules, the Seas of Cerealia. And that was it came out in 1996. So they were doing a whole bunch of naval stuff around this time. This says that naval forces are a vital part of any ruler's military, not only for warfare and conquest, but for exploration and trade. And so it was a little surprising they weren't included in the basic Birthright box set. Rectifying this omission, Naval Battle Rules brings would-be rulers back up to speed. As one would expect, the rules are detailed and comprehensive and mesh well with the existing land combat system. They also expand Birthright into an exciting new area, whether for seafaring adventures or ocean-bound conquest. Champions Heroes does a lot in its core rules. I remember Wooden Ships and Iron Men. I remember almost nothing about it, but I do remember playing on the living room floor. Honestly, I feel like doing specific types of combat like this would be better served by a war game that's designed for it, like Wooden Ships and Iron Men, with player roles giving modifiers. In my opinion, the Titterpig should heavily abstract this kind of thing for the sake of narrative. ICRPG just breaking every type of land vehicle into chunks is a great example. Probably related to what I'm just saying. I don't really trust TSR to make an elegant tabletop wargame rule set. Lynn says Cutthroat Island came out in 1995. That may have spurred the popularity of naval campaigns. That a movie? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, maybe that could have been it. That had Frank Langella in it. Oh. Birthright. So James likes Birthright, and Sable Phoenix says Birthright's the best setting that nobody remembers, though. Tomocrat says, I remember Birthright felt like it might have been an early Game of Thrones setting. Really? Oh. Well, let's see where else we go in here. We got a few more minutes. Underwater adventuring. See, this is the kind of stuff that I remember. I think we used more. I'm sure we did some kind of ship combat at some time, but I remember dealing with like underwater survival and things like that. Yeah, quite a bit more. And this is the kind of stuff that 5e glosses over. That I was always looking for more here. So let's see what it says here. Okay, rules for holding one's breath as well as drowning can be found in Chapter 14 of the Player's Handbook. So in low magic campaigns or adventures where magic spells and items are not readily available, dungeon masters can offer naturally occurring plants such as oxygen-supplying seaweeds, minerals, or other objects as a way of solving the underwater breathing dilemma. Alternatively, some technologically minded individuals or groups could provide PCs with the means to survive underwater through the aid of experimental breathing equipment such as primitive oxygen tanks. And I never really liked that kind of stuff. We talked about, didn't we talk about like the faux technology kind of stuff with alchemists and things like that? I'm not as big a fan on that for my games. Conversion. Magical items and spells that use alteration magic to affect a subtle change in the environment around the caster or wielder fall into this category. For example, magical power of a Helm of Underwater action converts water to breathable air. Conversion Dweemers allow the caster or wielder to speak while underwater. Oh, so this is different types of spell. Okay, so this is how different types of spells might help you out breathing underwater. Transformation. Both wizard and clerical versions of the spell water breathing transform the recipient's body so that it can extract oxygen from the surrounding water. The recipient's lungs and vocal cords fill with water, thereby cutting off the possibility of speech, including spell casting. In fact, if a recipient of a water-breathing spell returns to dry land or wanders into an airy water sphere, he must spend one round clearing the water from his lungs before he can speak or cast spells with verbal components. Although the recipient of the spell can breathe underwater, they still cannot function smoothly underwater. All attacks and movement penalties still apply to creatures under the influence of a water-breathing spell. Vision. They will experience tremendous alteration in their ability to see. Perhaps the greatest factor that limits the underwater visual capabilities of humans and demi-humans is the phenomenon known as absorption. When the eye perceives a specific color, such as a green exterior of a cloak, what it really sees is the color green reflected or radiating from the cloak. All the other colors in the spectrum have been absorbed. The process of absorption occurs quite dramatically when light passes through water. The colors with the longest wavelength are quickly absorbed by the water. Thus, red light begins to break down soon after it passes into water. The deeper light travels into water, the greater the absorption of its constituent colors. For example, red light is almost completely absorbed by water at a depth of about 25 feet. And all the colors of the spectrum except blue are absorbed at a depth below 100 feet. Thus, even the clearest water appears a deep blue when perceived at this depth. As one might expect, the process of absorption wreaks havoc on the infravisual capabilities of demi-humans. See page 71 for details. Okay, yeah, okay, I didn't think about that. I was thinking about visual distance. But you're right. Sable Phoenix, aren't you pro using like infravision? Lynn says, somehow in all my years of gaming, I've never played an underwater setting. I missed out on all the mermaids in Sahagwan. No physiological reason you can't speak with your lungs and vocal cords filled with water. If you can magically breathe it, it'll be an effort and your voice will be funny, though. Andrew says, I saw footage from a submarine showing how the color changes underwater. Very cool. Let's see. Visual distance underwater. So here's our Clear water visibility ranges. Clear day, overcast, stormy. Movement spotted type ID. So we got this movement. What movement? Clear depth modifier. What is depth? Oh, okay. So this is our surface condition. Okay, I see. So this is our surface conditions. This was like, I remember this was, so we looked at this, it was like, I forget what movement is, but spotted, how far you could spot something on the sea, determine something about its type, ID it, and then determine detail about what it's doing. So these were the different ranges that we had right here. So, but then depth modifier, the deeper a character goes, the more the surrounding water scatters the absorbed light filtering down from the surface. For every 50 feet of depth, the DM should move the surface condition down one category. For example, Dagor had just entered the ocean on a clear day. Normally, he can spot movement up to 300 feet, 100 yards away. However, the brave wizard decides to investigate a shipwreck 60 feet below him. Because he has moved down to a depth of 60 feet, the DM treats Dagor as if he were swimming in clear water on an overcast day. Thus, the wizard can only spot movement up to 150 feet, 50 yards away. Once a character moves beyond a depth of 250 feet or suffers a depth modifier that would move him beyond the moonless night category, he sees as if he were swimming on a moonless night in turbid water. Okay. If the water, this is also a lot of chart reference. If the character moves down another 50 feet, he is unable to see as the available light does not penetrate the water in sufficient quantities for his eyes to make use of it. The following tables detail the limits of surface dwellers' underwater vision. The tables take into account the quality of water, clear, turbid, or murky, as well as prevailing surface conditions, clear, day, overcast, or moonless night, for example. So that's all surface conditions. This is, okay, clear water visibility ranges. Okay. This is turbid water visibility ranges based on surface condition. And then this right here is murky water visibility ranges based on surface conditions. Is this page 71? Okay, optional infravision. Okay, let's take a look at this and then I'll probably check out for the day. Speaking underwater, even if you were breathing it, would be unintelligible. No sibilants or fricatives. And all of your high registers would vanish. Best you could manage would be burping noises. I thought the rule was that on a clear day, you could see forever. So optional infravision. Infravision suffers even more limitations in campaigns that use the optional infravision rules found in the Dungeon Master's Guide. With that option, characters with infravision perceive objects through the heat infrared emitted by objects in question. Unfortunately, water and any sediments suspended in it quickly absorb wavelengths of infrared light. Thus, the following rules apply. In clear water, a character's infravision is limited to 1/2 its normal range. In turbid or murky water, infravision is limited to 1/4 of its normal range. At any depth, the character using infravision can see about as well as a character using normal sight just below the surface on an overcast day. Infravisual sight, however, is by no means perfect. The scarcity of infrared light on the cold-blooded nature of much underwater life makes the exact identification of objects impossible. Objects in a character's field of vision tend to blur and overlap. Characters with infravision cannot distinguish the exact number of approaching creatures, especially if the creatures swim close together. For example, 3 Shahagwans swimming within 5 feet of each other would register as one large heat signature to a character with infravision. Even single objects look indistinct. A single Shahagwan, for example, looks like a vaguely human-shaped blur. To reflect blurred vision, shift one column to the left when determining how much detail a character with infravision can see. For example, Cordwain is swimming at a depth of 100 feet in turbid water. Thanks to his infravision, which normally extends 60 feet, he can see 15 feet, but only indistinctly. A companion swimming 5 feet away appears only as a humanoid shape. Cordwain can identify what type of creature there is, but no details. A school of fish hovering 15 away is visible to Cordwin's eye, but he has no idea what it really is. Well, all right. Those numbers look pretty dang optimistic for turbid and murky water for the infravision stuff. It's a lot to reference. I remember this being a very dense, a dense supplement. I don't know. We might come back to it. So here's verbal speaking underwater. We were just talking about that underwater conversations. Oh, somebody's burbling speech. Nonverbal communication. Underwater communication proficiency. Maximum functioning depth. All right. Well, I think I've got to see if I can get stuff done. So I don't know. It would be. I don't know when we're going to have the open house with the tavern. It would be great to be able to do it tonight, but I don't think that's going to happen. So I've got to finish some other things before I can turn my attention to that. There's been no script writing going on. There's been little RPG writing going on. I got to finish this contract about this Indiegogo campaign. That's first, and then got to get that going. I did get the rest of the Goodnight Sword books in that were necessary for the fulfillment of the Kickstarter campaign. There are still a couple of them have to go out, so those will ship, and then that will wrap up. So still a couple of people hadn't finished their survey, so I don't know where to ship it. So if you're one of them, please do fill out your survey, or otherwise let me know where to ship your book. All right, everybody, have a wonderful day. It's good talking to you. Another great conversation. I hope everybody has a wonderful day. Go be creative, be constructive, and grind on. Later.